Okay, here we go. Hello, my name is Michael Castledine. My student number is 1546308. This is assignment task 2, WHS training video. Today's date is the 7th of June, 2023. So, WHS training is important to make the workplace safe. It's for everybody to feel comfortable around equipment, especially when we have lots of different chemicals and hazardous materials. 2 regulations of Victorian's WHS are the Occupational Health and Safety Regulation of 2017, and we also have the Hazardous Substances Regulations of 2017 as well. So, a few codes of practice that are used to protect employees and other persons from harm. And this provides, a fair and effective representation. This also is about providing a framework for continuous improvement. So these are codes and practices that we want to look for and enforce and make sure everyone is on top of. And the individuals conducting business, managers, supervisors, and as well as workers are responsible for WHS. As mentioned, it's for everybody. So here, for example, as a student, I'm in a glass storage area. All parties are responsible for making sure the glass is stored properly. So if we look at here in the shelves, sometimes you'll have edges, glass just sticking out, which can be a hazard, catching your clothing, getting your fingers or a body getting caught. So this is where we want to identify it. So if you're a student or a manager, you want to identify it. We want to isolate it and we want to resolve it. So in this case, I would resolve by making sure they're all pushed in properly. And if I do cut myself, I would report it. So with policies and procedures, one of the hazards to identify this is, as I mentioned, the glass sticking out of storage. The risk management of this would be to identify and place the glass edges back in the shelves and then inform management that the glass edges have been pushed back and corrected properly and it's safe. Moving on to information about fire, fire exits, fire extinguishers. Here, fire extinguishers are labeled properly, fire extinguishers on the bottom. And if in the case of an evacuation or emergency, we have on the floor, you'll see some lines that direct you out to the street. So if the alarm goes, just follow the signs and you'll see the exits accordingly out here, and exits are labeled above the doorway out from the studio. All right. So as mentioned, everyone is involved with WHS consultation, and it's important for the organization because it ensures all parties are up to speed and have the relevant, the most reliable information. Now, employees can be involved in the WHS consultation process during induction. And this induction stage for staff, for students, is the very beginning when they come on site. They're introduced to all the procedures, all the regulations that are involved, and how to appropriately manage and track and record any incidences. So with any of these WHS issues, now these can be raised through the consultation process by informing staff, informing managers and employees. This can be done verbally, or it can be done formally in writing through email. And now we're going to move on into the studio, and we'll talk a little bit more about the information and the reporting of any incidents and hazardous risks and assessments. So next we'll go into the studio. Okay, we're gonna head into the studio. First I'd like to point out the yellow escape route out to the street, and also like to point out that in another quick escape evacuation, another door. So we're going to go into the studio, point out a few things, and we'll talk about. First off, again, we have fire extinguishers labeled accordingly and tagged. We also have an evacuation plan in event of an emergency, along with security, campus, and contact. You'll also see appropriate exit signs above the door. And following through, things to point out, we shall, because lead is a poisonous material, we have in the studio just reminders, protecting yourself from lead poisoning, masks, gloves, aprons, hand washing. So under policy and procedures, just reminders for everyone, students, managers, to always be aware. So in the office area of the studio, we have further information about lead and stained glass and contamination, lead absorption, and information and contacts if you need more information about it. In the event of an incident report, so we have our booklet here. This is Ellen Polly's Glass Studio Policies and Procedures Manual. So in the event that we have to document an incident, someone gets cut, not feeling well, that's where you would find information for managers, for students to fill out appropriate forms. We also have the safety data sheets. So any information about materials, chemicals, you'll find here. If anyone is not familiar or is just questioning what protective gear or chemicals they're working with, they can find more information. And then of course, just firing schedules and glass standards as well. So all the studio documentation material is here. And yeah, there's a few more things to talk about, which I will mention. So WHS information is available to employees and students at any time. So that's in the studio. I've accessed this information. Is also available online, but it's located in the shelves that I've mentioned previously. WHS issues can be recorded through that WHS maintenance report booklet, which I mentioned, and it's located up on the shelf, and that is for staff and managers, and if any reporting has to be advised and followed through, that is there. So this booklet also identifies the process, so the process for staff and the WHS training requirements, and identifies specific hazard risk assessments. So, example, washing your hands with lead after working with lead light and lead cane. The process for staff to undertake WHS training is during induction. It can be during induction and further information can be found on the Melbourne Poly website. And staff can be provided with further support through coaching and mentoring via the Melbourne Poly website. And so that concludes and conducts our WHS safety video for task 2.